And here we go again. GLM, God Love Money is episode 5. And I'm here in the space. It's a lot going on. And definitely coming here to share the love, send the love across the grid through the tribe. Letting everyone know, we're immortal, we're still alive, we're still kicking. This is infinite. And on this infinite journey, really learning how to guide your system and get your notics together is key. And that's what we're here to do. And we're doing that through what we know as the greatest categories of all. That's divinity, i.e. God. That is the energy that pervades all things called love. And then that money, which of course is the financial aspect of things. And I feel like if you ain't scoring an A plus in these categories these days, it could be a little tough. It could get a little tougher. But it's up to each and every single one of us to do what we can, not only for ourselves, but also each other, and continuously bringing in that collective effort into the physical plane, because definitely it already exists on the spiritual. It's like an ocean over there. Everything is just connected. So I really want to take a moment, just do a brief sound check, and then I'm going to dive right into this. I'm actually an hour early. I'm normally coming in at the 7 o'clock mark. For those wondering, what is the schedule for this? It ain't no schedule. It's just going to typically be around the same time if it's going to happen. It's like the lottery. If you see it pop up on your screen and you got time, that means it's for you. And that's how we're doing it for now, because, man, what's happening in reality definitely has me not wanting to set schedules all the time. So, all right. So if someone's in the chat, I think that's some idea. It's clear. We can hear clearly. Okay. That's all I'm looking for. All right. So here we go. By the way, I'm drinking hydrogen from Hydrolux. I'm on hydrogen a decent amount of times, just to keep hydrated. Drinking water, man, is just always one of those things, right? Like, unless you just really make a habit of it, you don't drink enough water, and you're 70% water, you could imagine the sludge that be running through some folks. So that's why we like putting hydrogen in the system, because it gives you that extra boost, because remember, the byproduct is water. So I want to talk very briefly about, just the psychological construct of one's consciousness and how they may be perceiving things and coming to certain conclusions really fast, almost so fast that you don't even really see it. It's called a conditioned reflex. And one of those actually has to do with me even being here talking to you about this type of knowledge, because what happens is that we have this construct already set up in our mind that says, hey, if somebody is talking about something and it's really true and it really is going to change things and it really can help me, 9 times out of 10, they won't even be there. They won't even be doing that. It's all either a hoax, a fad, or they would have killed that guy. This is what the subconscious mind is already doing. It looks at things from entertainment. It doesn't even look at things to listen. It looks to figure out when it's going to respond and how it feels about that. I agree with that. I don't agree with that. I agree with that. I don't agree with that. Not I'm sitting down and I'm working to learn something. And as I said, that is, again, the power of the space of the mentors and the masters, is that you already know you're coming in to actually learn something. So you kind of put yourself into receptive mode. And then that whole trust thing is already diminished, as far as you needing to determine if you could trust the person so you can listen to what they're saying, because that person has generally been vetted in some way or shape or form, or has some kind of accolade that can be seen that says to the person, you should listen to this being. And so other than that, it's like entertainment. It's like getting in front of something and saying, really, I don't actually believe in what they're saying, because if they were saying something very massive and life-changing, then they wouldn't even be allowed to do it. That's just what the subconscious mind is doing. So I just want to work in programming that very briefly, to explain to you, actually, the reason why I'm here explaining to you these great mysteries and these gems is because the beings that would normally be holding that knowledge back from you don't believe that you're actually going to listen to this or pay attention to it. And pretty much maybe they can see your track record proves that that's pretty much the case. Meaning, even overall, when we say humanity, when we say even our nation, the track record for a large percentage of the people from this nation specifically to not really move on any kind of knowledge and awareness, no matter how pertinent it is for them, is spectacularly high. So high that they don't even need to really work at other things like trying to remove people that actually have the truth, because they're so minuscule within themselves, and not to mention they wouldn't even be listened to. So what I'm really doing and why I'm here is, one, to make a record in the infinite annuals, and two, to make sure that for that small percentage, maybe, I wish it was everyone, but that small percentage that has been really looking at this message and dialing in for years to this projection that we've co-created together, that they get the message. And like, let's say, for instance, you know how you send out a newspaper every day, that they get the up-to-date, here's what's going on in the collective, as far as real conscious collective, and what we know to be happening and what moves we should be making as we navigate this ocean, because this is not static. So meaning that you can't really say, oh, I know everything. It's just not possible. Even things are happening right now that you don't know. So how do you know that until finally it comes down the pipeline and gets to you? So you can never say you know everything. I can't say that I know everything for that main reason. But I'm learning things all the time, and I'm experiencing things all the time. And then also what I've done is, instead of trying to learn everything, I've honed stuff into, let's say, symbols, let's say blueprints, let's say keywords. That way I know exactly what trail to follow to determine what's going on and what I need to be paying attention to. That way I don't just get overwhelmed in the deluge of data and the deluge of information that is now available, since this is, of course, the information age, right? So I want to, again, demystify this thing about that if I was here talking to you, it wouldn't really be of value or something that is not as powerful or is powerful enough to change your life, because the subconscious mind is thinking that and doing that because it's saying, well, because if he was giving you something, they would not even have him here talking to you. They would remove you. He would be up to a scam, whatever. It has like 5,000 things it can do in a minute. And I'm going to explain why that's there also. And this is called the theory of conditioned reflex. This is actually a precise term, because they had to come up with a lot of different terms. English in itself is kind of like white bread for a while. You got to invent words and invent, phrases to explain certain conditions. And in psychology, since they have to map out so many aspects of things that need to happen, people's consciousness, things that occur, conditions, things that they could be subject to, they have a huge vernacular in there. And one of those terms is the theory of, or not the theory anymore, because it was proven to be fact in many ways if you can subject a person to the proper conditioning, but it's just called the conditioned reflex. And what the conditioned reflex is that when they can concoct a whole phantasmagoria and a theatrical situation all around you and literally trigger you through symbols, words, colors, even certain tones and rhythms, and how you immediately react because you heard that, smelled that, or tasted that, or whatever, is so fast that you don't even realize that you actually reacted to it in that way. And that's called the conditioned reflex. It was something that was discovered after experimenting on pigeons, experimenting on mice, experimenting on dogs, experimenting on then psychologically impaired patients, then children. This is the order of experimentation. Then minorities, and then finally into the open populace of how can we cause this conditioned reflex. And also what is embedded within that is what is also known as a change agent. And what this means is that, so then when it's time for, let's say, this conditioning to take place, the change agents are then used to allow the person to basically switch into an altered state that they wouldn't even really accept as being the truth at another stage of their existence, right? So this is kind of like the phenomena of these people now hailing in the president as if, or the, shit, you got to watch these terms, but hailing in this person as being the savior or help to what we have going on here, when every single set of ancient knowledge, all the way up to the modern that has recorded the continuous barrage on not only the spiritual world, but also the physical, has already unearthed the awareness that there would be two parties controlled by the same people. There would be psychology deployed. MK Ultra deployed in order to make the ideals of people actually conform to whatever it is that they wish. And that why they were all playing this game in the big time thing, there was huge moves being made to actually continuously harness and control all of the energetic current that is coming off of that force. Like, so all of humanity, all of the children that we produce, that energy overall being in governance and being in control, while the humans, if you may, are just running around in some kind of psychological frequency cage. You know, like, just see it as it is today. Like, look where we're at. That's why I said, how do we get here? You know, look at folks every day, a picture of themselves. How much have you accomplished? How much you've really done? Why would anybody really care? Is this really about you? Or is this about you feeling good because somebody else likes what you look like? And realizing, is that a psychological itself impediment because of not having those who care about you and love you in earlier in your life? Because this situation and system has even removed the parents from the household, sent them to work, sent the mother to wear the pants and everything, sent her to the factory so she could build weapons, and sent dad out to the battlefield. And then now, you know, here you are left alone. And that being the reason why you do what you do, and being able to go right into your own construct instead of being blocked by, let's say, ego pride, being blocked by that, and being able to go into your own construct and begin to do the surgeon's work to release yourself from these diabolical shells of demented personalities, such as we know, the oral, the anal, the psychopathic, the masochistic, the schizophrenic, you know, the 5 shells or inverted avatars of humanity that we have sunk into at times in mire because of opportunists that have nothing better to do all day than figure out how they're going to drain our energy, basically, to look at us like we're on Amazon, like a catalog, and, you know, which one do I want, you know, here with me tonight, or which one do I want to try to control? And then, you know, you being a product of that and needing to make it from, I guess, as a pauper beyond the palace, right? So that's what I got for this right now, you know, because I'm going to bring one of my great friends on the line who I know is also on point, stays on point as we continue this rolling with this today in GLM. And, you know, just spark some thought and really just keep diving in. We got about 45 minutes, I would say, today, because there is another dream build that we're having in ambassador training tonight. You know, just continuously fortifying things where the tanks are much more bigger, which obviously is the astral plane, getting in control of the dream body. If half of your time every day is spent somewhere else, it makes sense to understand how to develop that space. And then also just overall continuously connecting with tribe, understanding how valuable just connection itself is, and not to undervalue the connection that we have with each other. So I'm about to bring in Dave Mathematics. Let me go in with it. Let me get my camera adjusted. All right, so there he is. Holding his roll. Hey, they gave me my X-Mark back, so now I could actually come in and out of calls now. It's good to see you.
What's
I know
going
you
on,
see me.
man?
Oh man,
What's
it's
going on,
going, man. Great to see you.
That's what's up. Am I coming through clear? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. We might want to let it breathe just a little bit, but obviously, if you've heard some of my previous joints, I've said there's been no X on that top right corner, so it makes it like Russian roulette every time I open up these lines, because you just never know these days, and now it's there. So I did send them a message, so I'm glad.
Yeah. By the way, I've been watching, so I'm like, let me make sure I'm correct. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to mess up the back channel here, but brother, man, it's so good to share space with you, man.
Oh man, no doubt, no doubt. I mean, you know, it's been a decade, you know, minimum. We've been on this journey just on the physical, right? And you know, I like the way you got things hooked up over there. You got the right kind of lighting and background, indeed.
Hey, you know, I figured I'm coming on GLM tonight. I got to come correct. So I was like, my partner Duo was here. I was like, do I look okay? I'm like, I'm getting nervous. I'm going on GLM, but no, you know what's funny, man, is I've been listening and watching the past episodes of this, which has been really entertaining. I love it, and also substantive. It's like it's my one-stop shop. I always tell people, I'm like, just go to Secret Energy and Innerstanding. Your one-stop shop for consciousness if you need that. But people were like talking about the originals, shouting out like when people first got on the Secret Energy. I'm like, but how many people in the chat box now remember the Resistance 2010.ning, right? So 11 years, 2009, brother. It's been that long since I've been really just nourished by your message and all your creation, man. So before we even get into it, I just want to say thank you, man,
Man, we
because
give thanks.
you know, you've been a tremendous source of truth and wisdom, particularly in a time when there's so much noise. So much love to you and the tribe, man.
Man, much love, much love. You know, it's definitely something that we've been continuously pulsing in everything that we do. You know, I've definitely seen how you've been in action quite a bit yourself over the last, shoot, that whole time. I mean, it keeps moving through us, right? It's just the current of truth. And even today, you know, we're here to, you know, dig into maybe some extra sensitive topics just so, you know, others have the opportunity to really get not only in alignment themselves, but be able to know what really to say or how to really respond to some of the stuff that they see going on around us, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely, man. And you know, which brings me, I guess we can get it started if that's okay with you. But because I had a
absolutely.
question for you, brother. I mean, you know, we're in such an intricate time, and there's so much complexity and really noise out there, particularly as it relates to people in America, right? Because a lot of people, such as yourself, you know, in Costa Rica, or some people are out there in Bali, or some people, you know, are out there in a really beautiful part of the world that has a direct frequency with Mother Earth. But then there are others who kind of can't either afford to or don't have the opportunity to experience that. So, you know, they're in New York City still, right? They're still at ground zero. Maybe they're still in Los Angeles right now with the Cali fires going on. And for them, I think the message may not just be to kind of look for the next retreat, like the next ayahuasca retreat or the next, you know, sacred tantric retreat in Mexico, but to maybe just stand their ground and really try to get a bearing on what's happening, to where they can actually stand in New York City or Los Angeles if they have to and still be able to preserve their energy and actually impact the reality. Because what I'm seeing now is this tailspin happen in America, where I'm still in right now, to where the conscious community is just really in upheaval. I mean, it's kind of like a buffet of any kind of theory you want right now. And really the more sensational theories are what people want, almost to get their conspiracy fix in. So it's like, oh, tell me the most outlandish idea you have so I can be entertained. And from your perspective, brother, I wanted to know, like, what's the most effective strategy that you've come to know and to teach and to give to people to kind of find that peace and inner calm in a time when so many people are really experiencing a lot of instability?
Definitely, I'm glad you bring that up. I guess we can't get enough of answering that question. You know, personally, I see all of the context of what we've been bringing for this last 10 years as just that, because that's how it's always felt to me. And I'm sure, you know, once your eyes are awake, like the magnitude of what people are actually experiencing now is maybe at level to what one experiences when they actually start going through the awakening process, because it just turns up the frequency of what's going on around them. So whether it's in the US or, you know, even the people here, like everybody is gravitating towards the city no matter where you go. You know what I mean? There could be this beautiful jungle out there, just like in the US, there's places that, I mean, you can't even top them in beauty. But that's not really where you find people, right? Because as we talked about earlier, there is that process of going through the cleansing, you know, to even deem that this is even important to you. And what I know, though, consistently is I found that when a person starts reaching into themselves like that, it doesn't matter where they are also, and it starts reaching out to them. Like there's literally this force that we're working with is it doesn't have the same boundaries as what we may have, even the geo boundaries, et cetera. It just moves right into their space and starts to immediately make things more harmonic. And, you know, and I think this is also an example of, like, I was looking at this one documentary and I think it was about Lagos. And, you know, Lagos is, you know, it's pretty impoverished there. However, the people weren't. And what you saw in the comments was people were like, man, and this was several comments, I feel like that these people are more happy than I am over here in this penthouse with this and this and this and this. So, you know, it's just the conditioning. and starting to really go at that condition. And that's why I realize I've been speaking a lot to that mental condition and what is really set up there in those altars of consciousness. And even when we could say MK Ultra, is that almost like it's almost said like it's been put on somebody else, when really what would it be like if you were put on under it, and how do you get out, right? So I think those same rules apply. And obviously the faster you can get into this, the better, because when situations intensify around us, then it will equate to you coming out of a womb. I think I came out, let's say, for instance, in somewhere in 2008, 2009, right? So I think not too far before that, the towers had got knocked down. So there was already an extreme frequency to come into. And what that did, you know, which I've already laid out, is it did urge me to, hey, I think instead of, after it showed me the reality, even more so than what people see, and showed me, you know, the energies and how they move around, what these big buildings really are, et cetera, it allowed me to tap out for one moment and say, okay, I'm gonna stop trying to just think about this from a simple perspective of something that I need to eat. I'm gonna leave and change my environment. And I had like $1,800. Like, it wasn't like I ran out of there with, you know, thousands of dollars. Later on, I went back and liquidated some of the things that I had and made more of a different move for some things that I wanted to do here. But it wasn't a prerequisite of that. It was simply, could I defeat that thing in my mind that was telling me, no, I could not leave, or I can't afford it, or I'm going to go out there, I'm going to get broke and become a bum. So I had all of those. You know, you don't speak the language. How could you? You don't have enough. How are you going to leave them? There were so many of those things, but I was already in a condition where I felt like if I couldn't fix what I had now seen was broken within myself, then I wouldn't be any use to anybody anyway. Yeah,
Man, that's deep. And of course, I'm familiar with your story, and I hope one day there's, you know, a biography to really kind of make it clear to people, because it's such an inspirational journey that everyone.
Little bus or something downtown.
Right, little. But you know when you're talking about Lagos, that kind of reminds me of something. I mean, one of the first awakenings I had was probably around like 2006, when I took a trip to Bondo, Kenya. At the time, my partner, she was actually stationed in the Peace Corps, right, to help them with some water harvesting projects. And Bondo, Kenya is outside of Kisumu, where there's no electricity, there's no running water. But my time spent in that village really kind of, actually, they came to my aid. Like, we were supposed to be over there helping them, but they really were helping us. Like, as they were telling us just how to get more in rhythm with the planet. They would go to sleep when the sun went down. They would rise when the sun rises in the morning. And they had a different balance. They had a harmonic frequency that they were tuned into. When I came back to America, I'll never forget when I came out of the airport and saw just all the, the billboards and the fast food restaurants. I was like, oh my goodness, like people need to go there, and people need to really be connected with Gaia, because right now, we're seeing, especially everyone's in quarantine, right? Everyone's just sort of living into this virtual reality, which is, I think, feeding into the disillusion that we're talking about with the political system, to where, you're really seeing an inversion of the consciousness, to where every single principle, be it conspiracy, be it enlightenment, be it becoming activated, is now inverting and turning itself on its head. So people have their filters really dirty. And of course, the way to get it clear, there's many strategies to that, including a lot of supplements.
I would like to speak at even a direct strategy that I was looking at, it came up again over the last 2 days, and it was based on some of the technological research that we had dived into about ground. It's basically 7.83 hertz for the human body, and how 7.83 hertz is similar to how your iPhone has a dock that it could go into and actually charge at the right rate that it needs to charge. Like, you can't plug the iPhone into the same charger that works the refrigerator, right? So there's this conversion that needs to happen, and that's very specific in frequencies. And we started to see that when applying the 7.83 hertz resonance, which you could do from standing outside, but what started to become to question is how much amplitude are we actually getting when also standing outside? And what that's predominantly based on is the coil engineering of the ground that you're actually standing on, because not all ground is the same. And when you start digging down underground, if you get like an extremely large amount of loose and dead substrata, if you may, then the coils are basically broken. Versus in, let's say, ancient places, what even makes those places ancient is generally they're on some slab of something, like solid something, whether it's granite or whatever. And the coiling system on that is tight and amplified and perfect. And then when you're grounding on that, you're getting 7.83 hertz at the amplitude that is necessary for you to actually charge your body. And then you'll notice that in these places that if you come in, let's say, you know, I'm beat, like at the end of a day, that kind of tired, within 35 to 45 minutes, you're already rejuvenated. Obviously, there's technologies that are working with being able to generate and hold a substrata of this type of frequency. And that's something that we're going to be building on in one of our courses in the next 2 weeks, just in relation to, okay, yeah, if I'm still behind enemy lines, but that's for a reason too, though, right? Maybe I'm here to do something. Maybe it's insurrection time and, you know, I still got family here. I got oaths probably in this place. You know, how do I sustain myself? So I feel like having some reinforcements, you know, for our troops, if you may, is ideal right now, since I see, you know, wholesome people who are in love, people who want happiness, really actually in a battle with a machine that really wants to make a humanoid a cybergenetic robotoid, to where it's just taking data that allows it to fill the place that AI and robotics can't actually fill in this industry as they continue to go forward. We got to understand that their projection is to do this in space. You know, some people don't even believe in space. There's all these different objectives and agendas to do it in astral plane and to just basically conquer all known areas like Star Trek. And if we don't head it off at the pass anyway, we're going to be dealing with it in some way, shape, or form. Even if I'm quote unquote dead, I'm going to still be dealing with it in certain degrees on the astral plane. So the more I get equipped of how to deal with it first internally, right, and then how to deal with any external phenomena, and then also not close myself off to any possibilities and potential. That's real diplomacy, right? It's like saying, okay, so if you're coming from this set level of thought or this race or this color, like, I wanted to leave this book plug here just for everybody so we didn't get through this and I forgot about it totally, but Charlotte Iserbyt's The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. Again, that's Charlotte Iserbyt's The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. This is a 700-page masterpiece by one of our, as they would say, melanin recessive sisters who had enough courage over the last 14 years to pioneer a level of wisdom and knowledge about what's really going on behind what I would say now is a real iron curtain, which is now, even though we're in this society, we think we have all this communication, we have all these Instagrams and all this stuff, and we think that anything that is being said is really heard. Me and you both know that actually things that are being said aren't really heard, right? We got candidates that went through that didn't get any kind of action, and they would have been more of like the actual candidate. We had news even about, like I saw on World Star Trend, Epstein with Trump today. You see what I mean? That's old stuff off BitChute. So there is really an iron curtain to what kind of knowledge is really coming out and who that knowledge is actually coming out to. Because once you start playing the law of averages in the game of odds, when you send a message across, maybe you almost have a 2 to 3% that even know what the hell you're talking about. And then even a shorter percentage of who can put that into context and actually do something with it, right? So it means that all of our solutions literally have to be turnkey. Like, okay, here it is. You know, here's an entire ecosystem for you. And to build an ecosystem is akin to like building a city. And so it's great that, you know, within a week now, we're going to deploy that next stage of that ecosystem. I actually been working on this keynote. It's called Conscious Economic Forum. It first was just started off as me going to introduce to everyone the automated wealth, basically, which is something you see many benefiting from right now. And then as I started putting the keynote together, I was like, well, you can't talk about that unless you talk about this. Well, it makes no sense to talk about this unless you're going to talk about that. And then I said, okay, let me just back off from this for a minute and just I'm agreeing to take this a little bit further than I was initially, but still, what should I cap this at? And what it really dives into is it dives into just how energy has progressed over time, and where everybody is at right now as far as the movers and shakers, the ones who are controlling things in relation to energy, and how instead of us just continuously being a product, that we can take this last ditch effort in creating sovereignty collectively, because we're still looking at about 3 more months per se within this year 2020 in December. And I feel like still that the things that we achieve this year set the tone for the things that we're going to be doing in 2021, 2022. Meaning, I'm saying just because there's 3 more months left in this year, let's not let go at all that this is going to still be the great thing that we see start and now takes us into the next year and starts changing really the ties on what we see happening.
Most definitely, man. And
Yeah.
and actually, I love what you're doing with fintech, because I think Wealthy Bot is going to help a lot of people kind of break free from the shackles and get more creative with their finances. And really, when you think about money, it's similar to politics in this regard, is that most people in the conscious community have steered clear of it. They think it's because it lends itself to such corruption that they're basically like, I'm just going to steer clear of it. I don't want any of that residue on me, which actually has logic to it. Because if you don't know what you're doing and you're dealing with finance and politics, you can certainly, get caught up in the waves out there. However,
Yeah.
let's talk about the elephant in the room, because this is something I've really been wanting to ask you about.
Do it.
We've got the Joker in the deck, Donald Trump, out here wilding, and you've got a lot of people in the conscious community who, for a long time, swore off politics altogether, said we're not even going to get involved in this game. But if you look right now, they're pretty much full on campaigning for, holding Trump Pence signs out there. So it's like, so, from your perspective, do you see Donald Trump as any type of individual who we should be supporting, promoting, and acting like he is taking on the cabal? Which, again, this is brilliant. This is really a brilliant psyops if you think about it, because they've really tried to leverage and harness all the energy in the conscious community and really use it to their benefit. So when you were talking earlier about both sides of the coin really still manipulating and still just being the engine.
Uh-oh. I think his line may. Okay, there you go. You're back again.
Yeah, I keep having to hit this because I don't know what's going on. It keeps Xing out. But I just wanted to know your take on all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it was only first of all, it was only a second, so we got majority of what you were saying. And this one is like really for me to go back in and get some Similac with iron and put on my diaper and jump right back into that playpen, right, and really play gaga goo goo with this one. But it does let us understand how deep this can get, right? As far as that people could imagine that any of these beings have their best interest in mind. Because our great-great-grandparents, you would never be able to convince them of something like that because of what they had seen and what they had experienced, right? So this is where experience comes into play. And this is how you can also test what's going on with people's experience. And also, if, like we talked about before, if they've been affected by change agents and they have conditioned reflex already being played out on them, where what happens is, okay, so let's put it like this. So the lesser of two evils, okay? Now, I've been through fire and brimstone, some crazy stuff. So for me, my fear factor threshold is going to be a lot more than a person who's been through nothing. So if you take a person that has been through nothing and then you open up an extreme situation to them, how they react in that situation is going to be generally in a level of extreme fear, okay? And this extreme fear is like saying, since there's a God complex still there, who is my God now that's going to come and protect me? Basically my higher power that I call on that deals with situations that are out of control and I can't personally deal with. And so now, because people are basically godless, as we explained what was going to happen before, if they didn't figure out the God within inside of them, once the religious structures collapsed from their lack of being able to force that stuff down everybody's throat, there was going to be just a godless nation then, because people wouldn't know the God in themselves and they wouldn't believe in the external God. So then now they have an elected God. Generally, money is the God. Mammon is generally the God that is played for the last 2,000 or 3,000 years. But that secondary God then becomes this leader that they can elect, which is a big thing. And actually everything to do with certain levels of when you get deeper into mysticism has to do with why voting still takes place. People think that voting is still taking place because it is a democracy, but they don't realize that it is necessary for several different things that have to happen in the brain and several different things that have to happen metaphysically for you to agree, for you to literally make an oath or a pact to something in order for it to begin to open up that space within you and begin to tamper with you. And that goes for a lot of things that we actually put our signature on and that we actually even transact with our social security number with, et cetera. But there's an order of magnitude. And I would say for sure, electing a leader over you, like the Old Testament Saul time, is kind of like the highest magnitude of doing that. So I would say for sure, we're witnessing that flip-flop frequency programming thing that we just talked about earlier happen. And we're seeing how it does work. And this is not something to underestimate. And that's why I was speaking earlier, even within one of our group sovereignty mentorship, about how important it is to have a blueprint. So that way, or have the blueprint, the original blueprint to how all of this is put together in the first place, because then you can take anything through that blueprint, even things we didn't even talk about, things that I didn't know about, you just came up across. You could still take that same blueprint and it will give you discernment of determining what you should do in that situation. So you're not just moving on the mind controller, right? Which is just fear. So yes, the options for people right now dealing politically, you can't win anyway. It's like sitting at the table and, you know, everybody is cheating. So but look at what the option is for people. They're like, okay, Biden, which they've made to basically be almost a comatose corpse, and Harris, a yes woman, basically, and the only other option. So these characters, they're, you know, these people kind of look at this like Hollywood. They're entertained by all this. It's a reality show, right? And so, and also their personal vested interest as one person is minimal. This is why they can always invest their interest, meaning as one person, unless you're moving and shaking and you already you sway thousands or hundreds of thousands of people's mind. It's like only your soul force, your little battery cell that you're contributing. And some people don't think that that has a lot of value, so they throw their signature on it. But they don't realize that there is a herd or collective programming that also says if there's 200, 300,000 signatures, that influences others to make that decision. As we know, signatures being a two-dimensional imprint of the person, right? The two-dimensional imprint of the person's energetic signature. So if they have a lot of those, it almost like starts a wave, literally. It starts an energetic wave, and that others end up getting kind of wiped into that wave. And so this is, of course, that Trump phenomenon where it's like, okay, now, because they've been funneling it all year. You know, obviously we know, who was that, Tulsi Gabbard, who probably, if anybody, you see what I mean? But we saw this all year until finally, here's the last ones you have left. Here's the four, or mainly three, because you never see Pence. But, you know, here's the three. What is your choice? And this is perfect because what they wanted to do is they're striving for a 50-50 because a 50-50 is civil war. 70-30s is what we're normally looking at. But a 50-50 ignites what we're actually seeing. But this is all, again, catalysts. Like this now is for sure from the system, as what I told everybody, read this in Isaac Bite's work. She'll explain this in detail. This system is in itself Russian. It is in itself communist. It is in itself in alignment with China. It is in itself just the control systems coming through. That's already been experimented with in those sanctums. And the process in which they take people through those processes is to get that conformed is the exact process that we're going through right now. Yet we still have these moments. Now, we're not the only ones that are possibly, when I say possibly aware of this, because the full awareness is not just, I know the data, there has to be an impact. Like once you find out, let's say the pedophilic situation is happening, there has to be an impact to your own personal consciousness. Man, this ain't balanced. This ain't right. I got to do something about this. And then there's got to be an energetic investment from you to actually prove that you're really opposed to those ideals. It's not just a yes or a no. It's first a conscious thing and then an action, right? And so I would just say this in conclusion of the matter, that we get in these situations when we are low on people that we can actually say still are supposed to be our mentors. Mentors are like our great grandparents. People are looking up to their elected officials, which are going to soon become non-elected officials. That's what Soviet means, is a non-elected official. And if you realize where all that comes from, it doesn't mean there's no vote or choice about who's going to be there. But as you're reading this work and many others, it starts in the school system. And this is why so many kids right now are at home. This is something that when this lady was telling everybody in 2014, imagine we've only been like on the last 2 to 3 months of homeschooling. This lady was telling them about this in 2014 in detail, naming names, showing you who it was, all of that. Again, we never heard anything from her. But then at that stage, if you told everyone that, listen, the goal is the federal institutions are going to take control of the children's education, and they're going to be in a non-elected committee. It's going to be the computer, your child, and the psychiatrist's curriculum, and that's all there's going to be. People would laugh at you like, so you telling me everybody's going to go home to homeschool? What kind of phenomenon needs to take place? You're crazy. So now we're only 3 months in, but we're in the future that this lady is explaining that they were rolling out. The interesting thing about this lens, though, because we can see this in metaphysics, we can see this through other arenas, is that they're intelligent enough to go to the root, as I explained last time we got on the God, Love, Money, the root. Because still Trump overall and all the different things going on in politics, no matter what it was, even if it was in our favor, we would still find that what we have to personally contribute to that would bear very little change in the overall outcome. Okay, so this means that even if you invested all your day, you got it tattooed on your chest, you went downtown, everything, still versus how much you would benefit if you just invested that time in yourself, it's wide, right? So this is with a lot of stuff these days, even stuff that's way more plausible than dealing with the political situation, but still things that you're relatively going to have to ignore right now from an order of magnitude level, because this one becomes the most important now. And for us as trees, one of the most important things for us is our roots. And our roots connect to our fruits, right? So if we don't have the fruits, if we can't nourish the fruits from our roots, then we can't we can't grow the fruit. Then if the fruit can't drop the seed and the seed come on soil that is nourishing, then we cannot continue. So if we just take that process in its strength and even put it in our institutions of thinking as the key fundamentals to how we grow, it would reap an immense amount of awareness and data that we could use to make our lives better. But we should know then we're not actually in a system that is intending to make our lives better, right? And it's a tough pill to swallow. This is the red pill, blue pill. You know what I mean? Because literally, one, you're going to swallow, and man, this one, for you to accept this is why some people swallow the pill and they held it under their tongue.
Right.
Because we didn't really see a change in their overall behavior. They took the data, but the data didn't really get like loaded, right? So this is where we're at now, is that, you know, we're still like breaking this down into plausible pieces that others will find interesting for their entertainment. But truly, I mean, that they get entertained enough to actually subscribe or watch. But truly, this is a life or death conversation right here. And that's just how valuable we've been throwing valuable things away, right? Because life or death conversation is happening. 162 people are present listening to that. And overall, yeah, we could maybe bump that up to 5,000 or 6,000, but we're still talking about 9 billion. And this is why, still, as I said in the beginning of this conversation, we can really say anything over here. I can get you out of the reality and back in and still not face any repercussions or anything from the quote unquote controllers, because it's not a percentage high enough. In fact, in their research, they need a little percent of what I have going on to balance out all of the rest of the formulas. So I'm telling people right now, look, even if you're just one of those folks that catch on and realize what you need to do with your life, as many of us are here, you would still make up a very small percentage of people who actually really allowed it to accelerate them so they would know what to do after you die. And then in conclusion, of course, if we know these kind of things and we feel comfortable that in that knowing, now the external world becomes like, because you see its repetitious process, right? Like we saw it Like, I mean, we see it over and over again. We saw it with Ronnie Reagan. We saw it with Obama. We see it all over and over again. So it's just like, for us, it's just a continuous record. But for others, it feels like it's something new, right?
Right, yeah, and there's always going to be a character that's going to appeal to people, right? Because there's going to be, really, really, when you look at Trump, it's really like the WWE. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, there's always, everyone had their favorite wrestler growing up, right? Because some type of archetype appealed to you. Whether it was Macho Man, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, whoever it was, right?
Yeah.
So, Trump right now is kind of filling that vacuum for a lot of people who
Yeah,
are still on that
exactly.
program. And we even see that too with Bernie Sanders, like who's somebody who I think would have been a lot better for the culture, but people still looked at him like kind of Bernie Sanders clause, like the guy who was going to be the savior of everything, as
Yeah.
opposed to realizing that that's a collective responsibility. And the only thing I'll say about politics is that people are always lectured to vote, right? But there's never much conversation after you vote in terms of what you should be doing in your community. So you can impact your community at the local level in many ways, regardless of where you live, whether you're in the United States or elsewhere,
In
and actually
fact,
go out into the community and get off the computer sometimes and just meet with people and talk and show people fellowship and love, because you'd be
yeah.
surprised what happens and what hinges off of that.
And yes, and in fact, anybody who really knows politics knows that the elected position of the president is not the system of actual control. It's the local government and it's the laws. It's, a whole different arena. It's the prime. So in conclusion, again, I have plugged before Yusuf L, because I mean, he's already got it mastered, but just that awareness of the difference between public law versus private law, and how private means private. Like, shut the door, you can't come in, I'm a sovereign, this is what I'm doing behind my door. And to realize that there were the upstanding American citizens that had already elected that status, and many people around the world who had already elected that status, and knew that what came with that status was that you could not accept any benefits from the system. And this is where sovereignty comes back into play. And that's why I'm coming in on this conscious economic forum, because people are now, they have to accept the benefits, because that's always what they do. They go up in these broke ass countries that they broke, and then they make people make choices and sign things that, like at Bahrain right now, like, I mean, just to make choices and sign things based on force and condition, not based on that they really want to do this. And so when is the last time someone has made a decision that wasn't under duress? So the truth here is that it does require, because what's happened is they just stripped the parents out of the house. Like, so even our parents are actually more like children because of what they lost. So when they strip the parents out of the house, that means that nobody really learns like the adult stuff, like how to take responsibility for how we're transacting. Like, look at Lord Mayor Rothschild, how he was treating his children and how he made them understand how important it was to be involved in this banking and this money and to be able to govern and control. And then you would have had somebody sitting back there from maybe some new age movement explaining to everybody how that wasn't even important till 100 years in the future, if you may, or 50 years in the future. Now it's their very children that are actually at the behest of this same thing that they were critiquing as the world turns. And that's why I was saying, like, yes, I get the koala bears, but I also get the uranium. And for us to realize that we're in a contrast here, and where you're at, obviously you want to be in the balance, but if you have to strike, you have to move very quickly and very precise, and you need to know where you're at. And what I feel like is quote unquote the heresy now is the self-appointed leaders who don't have the integrity to actually realize how their decisions will impact the thousands of people that actually follow them. And it's even more at times when we talk about on a spiritual level, because people happen to be spiritually very, very intense when they get spiritually motivated. So when their spiritual leaders are running around telling them, hey, go and do this or be a part of that, it's a blow at times to us. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's also a confirmation then of whether or not you took the knowledge and really applied it for yourself. That's what we call in the beginning the man or the mission, right? Like, is it this information that we're bringing that you need, or is it me that you need, right? And we already know that it's the consciousness, it's the information, it's the experience, because you can always take that, you can always run with it and use it. And the only thing secret energy, the resistance, etc., has been doing is explaining in real time what we've had to learn and what we've had to adapt to. Because I believe for sure, as we talked about before, this is going to be about adaptation. Overall, though, it doesn't mean that I agree with them because I want to survive in their system. Actually, my equation for that is, okay, 75 years maximum, we would live here anyway in the physical. You will offer me something here that would benefit me here, but compromise me for the rest of my existence. How does that doesn't add up. So I'm just going to stay where I'm at this point with staying in the truth, learning more and more, because the truth is, it's funny because it's us really, right? Like we're the mission. So it's breaking down these walls of falsehood that have been programmed inside of us. And, at least establishing a house where we can all begin to do that together.
100%, brother. Star seeds
Yeah.
growing the star trees, right? And
Absolutely.
just the last thing I'd like to
Absolutely.
say
Give you that
tonight,
again.
the last thing I'd like to say tonight is how important it is for people to be custodians of consciousness, because we all remember that moment. Maybe it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago for some, maybe it was 1 year ago for some, where people had their first spark of an awakening, where they were really starting to discern their reality in a way that gave them that, oh, aha, wake up moment. But if people aren't properly cared for and guided in that journey, they become exploited, because right now there are people who are become experts at exploiting people's consciousness to the point where, oh, this person's about to be awake, let me steer them in the wrong direction, sign up for maybe a Gaia TV subscription, and then just just latch onto a QAnon conspiracy theory, and they're not getting nurtured with anything. So I want to shout you out, because really from 2009 to 2020, and even before then probably, but that was the first time I met you. You've been a custodian of consciousness, and really in a very patient, meticulous way have ushered people as a rainbow bridge, and that to the point where their consciousness is nurtured, cared for, and they're developing in a way that helps them mature more responsibly. And I see that as a really big void right now in the community. So, big shout out to you, man. And I really appreciate you letting me stay on this long on the GLM joint, because I got nothing but love for you in the tribe, man.
Oh, man, no doubt. We overdue for being up in here anyway. I mean, and actually, we're going to come forward with this again. And, it's funny because Dave was the first person that put me on the Instagram. I remember you over at the house and was like, look, just set up your account right here. And I guess it took me 2 years to use it, but I'm here. But obviously, the hyperfake catalyst being in the house is a signal for all of us, to just be aware of the times that we're in and just how much power we have in all of this too. This is by any means, sometimes we have to drink, because even if you go through bitter medicine, right? So even if you have to drink some heavy knowledge or some heavy level awareness, you may throw it up right away, right? Like, I can't accept that. It feels overwhelming. But if you can get up under it and you can squat it and you can lift it, this is going to make you stronger. And obviously, if you could tap into that awareness that we're doing that collectively, then it's obviously not going to be as heavy, but you have to do your own work. And this is where it's so, just like what you're saying, it's not enough to just have the data and to spout the spout. You got to remember that's what they want you to do. They just want you to have the data, have the vernacular, and just spout the spout. And rather than putting the action within. And this is the other thing that, we've been, very persistent at explaining to everyone, like, going externally and exerting all of that power. You may go out and you may run downtown and throw up a bunch of picket signs and everything. And at the end, the energy is depleted. And what did you really get for that? Like, realizing how to start investing that energy back into self. And seeing how much more value it will have for you there, right? So time is valuable is, I guess, the conclusion of the matter. To remember that, especially with these things, they're moving around really fast, and you can be looking up in 2021, subject to just get the progressive scenario continuously going and not necessarily be prepared because you didn't choose to do that for yourself. So that's the power of choice, right? Like, we can all at some point, just make that choice for ourselves to say, let me go ahead and dive in. And as I said earlier, I've never seen a person that chose to do that not getting any assistance, no matter where they were. Yeah.
That's deep. That's deep.
Well,
Enough said.
we went in on this thing. We'll definitely be forward on some GLM That's Dave Mathematics, y'all. Y'all should know him. Definitely check him out. He's always doing something. His beautiful queen there, she's always up to something, Dua, and just giving thanks for their continuous energy and support as pillars, in this tribe, and also just bringing that universal awareness, because there is still that point-to-point system that we all carry where we resonate truth, as the brother was saying. Hold the space, hold the line, like make sure that there's enough of us that are resonating this level of connection and awareness with each other, so it allows the web of synchronicities to continue to flow, because all of us have been a part of that web of synchronicities coming into each other's lives at a key moment where we needed that extra uniqueness that each person has to offer. Dave did that for me. I did that for him. We continue to do that for others. And that's what we know to work, based on clear proofs. And it's another thing. It takes us to go out and to experiment with this and see the results of it to actually know what. Give me some clear proofs. And then the integrity thing, like remain integral in this. Why not? If you already gone this far, you see, you can't pull off pure treachery. I need to tell some cats. You're not built like them to pull off pure treachery. We have a lot of these rappers and stars, they're what they call as below stars. They're not even built like the people that they work for. They can't pull off pure treachery. And so they try to get closer and get their Basquiat on and, their Warhol on and their Lucis Trust on and trying to get all in there. You look silly because you don't even fit in there. You're like a water being sitting in fire. And, but the truth is that coming right into who you are, we see a couple guys doing it, even though I'm wondering if that's all a part of the new gimmick too, because it's getting views high. But hey, we got a couple cats. I think his name is NLO or NLE or somebody like that, is starting to feel his chakras opening up and all this kind of stuff. And, it's still one of those things where, these brothers and sisters need to know, where's your charging station? You're not the only person that is aware of something. Even like I have to always realize, like, there are, like I showed one today, Charlotte Eisenbach, and a few others that are in her clique too, all around the world. People in Switzerland, people in Uzbekistan, over in Anchorage, all repping that balance and that harmony. So don't let this TV, this is another thing, don't let this TV try to dictate to you everything that's going on. Because this is the whole weird part about life, right? Like if we just had a news station that reported the great things that happened, it would be full just as much as the TV station that tries to bring forth what's also crazy happening, right? So if that becomes our only communication medium, which is why it's always great for us to get in on these builds, and also to share the builds. If you're on the line today and, I think it's a push of a button for you to actually be able to repost or share this build with somebody else, and not go into monkey mind thinking, well, they're going to judge me for that. I didn't actually believe, they're going to think I went to Trump and they saw me do that. So there's all this stuff. And those are all the frequency cages. Just do it. To be unapologetically, let's keep letting others receive what resonates with them. So Wholeness and Balance Vibration, that's GLN episode 5 with Dave Mathematics. And it's been on. We're going to keep this going and make sure that next time that we come up in this, that we've all waxed strong. And I'm telling you, if 7 ever told you anything, at least 25% of this, the deliberate dumbing down of America, take it through there. Because when you see the format for what is planned for the roots, which are, again, the children and the seeds, you see the bigger program versus if you're just focusing on technology, if you're just focusing on finance and, all the different fields that I even focus on, it's the roots that's going to give us the most accurate template about what's happening in the future. Not so much as some of the metaphysical things, the linguistic system, the Kabbalah, all those different things, not that specifically, what's specifically happening right now and what is the plan. And I feel like as a teacher, a parent, if you're a teacher, if you're a parent, if you're a leader, you need to read this. You need to stop teaching. You need to, or you can't stop parenting. Oh, well, it's not an option. You got that, baby. Or take a moment and take a break from leading and know what you're talking about, because you'll see that many people are stooges for something that has been trying to take away the freedoms of everybody. And remember, new kids come in every day. So they may have a whole country's freedom or a whole group of people's freedom, but new people are coming in that they don't have their freedom. And so if there's anything that you want to stand with, it's protecting the freedoms of those to come, preserving the DNA, making sure that there's always a portal and always a pipeline that our great balanced instructors can keep coming in and out of this through, because this is also, it's a huge harvest. This is not one, everybody's going at the same time. This is wine. So we all have to put in this work literally in this vineyard to make sure that that next, how long they been aging? 532 years. Like, you think they're ready to go to that next stage yet? I think so. But just remembering, it's not all the time where we would see just everybody going into this massive consciousness that we imagine, but we definitely look to be a foundation to hold up everybody and to be able to bump them up one level. And so I'm looking forward to building with you more, Dave, us getting in on some trilingual. I got some stuff I want to holler at you about in relation to education. Also, if there's any parents out there that have a specialty in metaphysical curriculum, definitely hit me up in the DMs. I mean, real stuff, like you really know what you're doing. It's really a time for us to really make sure that we're there. And yeah, thank you so much, Dave, for bringing in that energy, because you kept it real. So we had to go through that process, and that's always lovely.
Always love, brother. It's an honor to be on with you, man. And I just want to say I love you, brother, and send my love to the fam. Send my love to the fam over there, all right?
I will. All right. Wholeness.
Wholeness.
All right, family. So that's what it is. So we'll be back in on GLM. And actually, that's True Sparta. So y'all check out Dave Mathematics. Actually, I called it in. So y'all, because I see in the comments something like, well, who was that? That was True Sparta. Y'all check him out. He's definitely been doing this thing and continuously repping it. As I said, him and his queen doing their thing. So where we're at right now is we're at the end of this. I'm going to jump into this dream course so we can continue to figure out what's going on in the astral plane. And as we keep going with this build of life, just remember this stuff. Take it through there. Like, make the choice. You can learn everything you need to know right now. You got to buckle down. Don't collapse. Remember, you're not the only one that knows, but if you're going to be able to do something here, you need to be aware of what you're doing. So that way you don't find yourself delegating energy to the same thing that we're over here trying to harmonize. Wholeness.